Hey Grauwelt fans, it's me again, Victor Salinas, with another weekly video. Before we get started, I'd like to take this opportunity to advertise the next live show. We've been doing these live shows every month. We just did the fourth one a little while ago. The next one is going to be on October 15th. October 15th at 4 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. That seems to be the time that works pretty well for everyone. It definitely works well for me, and some of the other attendees around the world have been able to work that out in their schedules as long as I give you guys enough advance notice. So the next live show is going to be October 15th at 4 p.m. It's kind of a chance for us to have a sort of two-way conversation. In these videos, it's just me talking to you guys, and then in emails or in the comments you tell me what you think, and then I can interact with you kind of on a delayed basis. But in the live shows we can interact, you know, two ways, or really multiple ways, because everyone can see everyone's questions and comments, and it's a lot of fun, and I plan to do them once a month as I have been doing. So I hope to see you guys there in the next episode. So moving on to today's subject, I want to talk about something that I've talked about a lot. Like a lot of these subjects, they seem to come up through questions that I get from you guys that watch, from people that email me asking me questions for advice, and this is one again that I get a lot and I've touched on a few other times, but I want to devote an entire video to. And a lot of people ask me, you know, how to plan something that they're writing, like a novel or a short story or even an entire series. I've even had someone that says they wanted to do a screenplay for a movie, and they wanted help, just a few bits of advice on how to plan it. And I guess a lot of people inside of their head think that you really need to plan everything out, like every detail, every bit of dialogue, every movement of a character's hand, or change in the pitch of their voice and how you're going to describe that. There are some people out there that write and create things that do plan in that huge amount of detail, but I'm definitely not one of them. You've seen the videos, I'm sure, before, where I talk about how I plan things. I use just 3x5 index cards, and each index card is one chapter, and I just write out the basics and then label them chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and then keep that stacked next to me as I'm writing my drafts. And then of course those cards can be updated as time goes on, so I can scrap that and change the order and change the titles and shuffle them around, and probably by the time I'm done, half of them have changed entirely. So it's a really flexible way. But when I'm inside, as I like to call it, a chapter, so let's say today I'm sitting down and I'm going to write chapter 8. I take my chapter 8 index card and I read it. I think about it for a couple minutes, and I do something I don't know that other people do. It may sound a little strange, but I do something that I call emotional writing. So I take my index card, I read over the summary of the chapter that I have to do, I think about it, and I try to get myself into the character's frame of mind. So my writing style, it shifts perspectives a lot. Usually with each chapter it alternates from antagonist to protagonist, antagonist, protagonist, antagonist, protagonist, and sometimes the different sides can be different characters, because you might have 2 main protagonists and 3 main antagonists, and so there's a sort of pattern that I use. So each chapter, or sometimes a chapter, can break between 2 different characters, even on opposing sides, if you will. But usually one chapter sticks to either protagonist or antagonist and one particular character's point of view. So I try to get myself into that character's frame of mind. So I try to think of, you know, what their background's like, you know, what their personality's like, what their motivations are in this chapter and the story as a whole. And I try to pretend like I'm inside of their head, and, you know, I'm assuming, you know, their mind, their body, their history. And as I'm writing, I tend to discover a lot of things that I didn't think about before. So, you know, chapter 8, let's say in our example, might say that this villain you know, is interrogating another, like a captive, and through the interrogation he finds some vital information that leads him to locate where the heroes have run off to. I'm just making this up, keeping it very general as I like to with examples, so you can fill in the blanks for your own purposes if need be. But So, maybe in the planning stage on my card, I don't have exactly what that piece of information is, or how the interrogation is going to go, or even whether the captive is going to die or live, or something like that. So it's just a kind of brief overview. So when I'm inside of the chapter, when I'm inside of the character's head, I just pretend like I'm them, and I let the story flow, kind of making it up as I go along in a certain way, guided by my index card. And my index card just gives me a direction. Get from here to over there, and it's up to you while you're doing it to come up with the route that you take. And I think that has a lot of really great advantages. The principal one is just this process of discovery. There have been so many times that I've done that, and I just come up with all kinds of fascinating conclusions, all kinds of really unique bends in the story and things that the characters think about. A lot of the writing that I like to do from characters' perspective, if you've read the first Grauwelt book, is a lot of what the characters think when they see or hear things, or just thoughts that they have when there are a lot of scenes where characters walk from one place to another, or are traveling, and they're thinking to themselves, even when they're just walking down a corridor, they're thinking about what's going on in their story, what their motivations are. Maybe they see something that reminds them of something else. And for me personally, that's something that I do a lot, and I think we all do a lot. That kind of internal dialogue. We always have our voice in our heads, thinking about different things and processing different bits of information. And I don't know what all the characters' motivations are necessarily. I don't know all of their history. There's no way I could possibly map that out. So a lot of it has to be made up on the spot. And so I just work myself into a sort of emotional state that's very similar, or try to emulate the way that the character is feeling at this point in time, or how I think they should feel, and then let that guide me as to where the character is going to go. And in a lot of ways, the effect ends up being that the character leads me to the next part of the story. It's not necessarily I'm telling the character what to do. It's just the way that you imagine the character's personality and motives kind of forces you into this new path that you hadn't seen before, and you can't see before, I think, unless you're really feeling the character. So for me, I call it writing emotionally. I just put on the trappings of that character, and I kind of pretend that I'm them while I'm writing it from their point of view, and I let the character guide me throughout the story. There have been a lot of times where the character will take me, so to speak, in a direction that I definitely did not plan, and ends up changing an entire part of the story based on what really I think that character would do or say based on their circumstances. And to me, that really avoids another problem, which is contrivance. Sometimes if you read a story, it's obviously really contrived. The author obviously planned for everything to happen. I'm not that kind of way. I like things to look and feel natural. I like things to go wrong when they can. The characters sometimes believe misinformation. Maybe no one has the right answer. Real quick example on that is in fantasy settings, it's always taken for granted that the religion that people believe in, if they believe in one, like the gods, are true. Or that they exist and things like that. So a really good way is maybe that's what they believe, but that's not necessarily the truth. I like to build in falsehoods that people believe in the stories. I like to build in flaws. I like a character to try really, really hard and plan really carefully to pull something off, and then they still fail anyway. And those kind of bits of inspiration for me only come when I'm writing emotionally, only when I'm in the character's skin, thinking the way that they would. And then on the outside of that, on the planning part, when I'm looking at my index cards and daydreaming on the bigger story, then I try to throw in the wrenches to the character's motivations and purposely kind of screw them over. So then I have to get back into the character when the story picks up with them again, and then respond to the way that works. And it's really fun when you have a protagonist-antagonist situation, and you're writing emotionally from two sides as the chapters alternate, and then it's kind of like a race to outdo each other, in a way outdo yourself, because you're acting as both of them. And I think that through that dynamism, that contest between the two, you really come up with a story that's a lot more interesting than one you could make up from the outside, just like a puppet master pulling the strings. For me, it's just getting emotional and getting inside the characters' heads that really makes it evolve. in a really natural way. So I'd like to see how many of you guys do something similar. Are you one to come up with everything in an outline and then write it kind of, I hate to say mechanically, but that's kind of the way I see it. Or do you really try to get inside the character's head? Even if you narrate from a third person point of view like I do, it's not a first, it's a lot easier to do if you're doing first person to get inside the character's head. I do third person. But that third person is tailored only to the character's point of view. Sorry, an alarm just went off on my computer notifying me of something. I apologize. If any of you guys have Windows 10, let me know about that. It's kind of good and bad at the same time. I'm probably not going to edit that out. But let me know if you guys have a similar writing process to that. I don't know how many of you do. I want to believe that the way that I do it at least is a little bit unique, but then again, I wouldn't be surprised if everyone does that, and it's kind of why I'm making this video, to share that with you guys and see if you do something similar to that. Again, I'd like to remind you that the next live show is going to be on Thursday, October 15th at 4 p.m. Eastern US time. I hope to see all of you guys there. It should be a great time. I always have a lot of fun with it. I also got the jar of Marmite, that yeast extract kind of spread in the last in the last live show. I did promise that I was going to eat that for the first time. It's something that I think I'll like based on the way that it sounds, but I think a lot of Americans have a really hard time stomaching like Marmite and Vegemite, but I should be trying that out. Or I'm sorry, I will be trying that out for sure, and I hope that I do like it. I'm still going to eat it either way because I had to pay for it, so it should be a lot of fun. Let me know what you guys think about this episode and this concept of writing emotionally in the comments. You can also always email me directly at victor.salinas@grauwelt.com. Don't forget to rate and share this video if you liked it, and subscribe to the Grauwelt channel. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.